views and opinions expressed in the following program are those of the hosts, guests, and contributors, and do not reflect the official views of Real TV, its management, or affiliates. Content is provided for informational and entertainment purposes only. Viewer discretion is advised.
Greetings and a very pleasant good afternoon to all our lovely viewers. NPTA Speaks, National Parent Teacher Association Speaks, coming to you from the studio of Real TV located at Fred Plaza, Sawa in Trinidad. We are very happy to be able to join you in your offices, in your living rooms, in your bedrooms, wherever you are viewing this program from, as we bring the views and perspectives of the National Parent Teacher Association. My name, Walter Stewart, President of the Trinidad and Tobago National Council of Parent Teacher Associations Incorporated, and I'm very happy to be your host on yet another installment of NPTA Speaks. Wow, already 4 weeks in the July-August vacation as we approach week 5, and it's counting down to the end of what I'm sure for many of our students, many of our children, is a fantastic holiday period. What about all this lovely sunshine so that you can go to the beaches, you can go on your hikes, you can go in the caves, you can go in the pools, and you can have a really glorious time as you enjoy your July-August vacation. Remember, students, in all the fun, put in an element of studies. As you get your new school books, as you get your new school supplies, go through them in the introductory stages to make sure that come September 7th, you are raring to go for the new academic year 2026-2027. Ladies and gentlemen and viewers, week before last week, we had the pleasure of having as our guest Miss Lafleur. And of course, the topic then was inclusive education. That was the second part of a series because we started prior with Mr. Surratt, Executive Officer of the Trinidad and Tobago Blind Welfare Association. And it was all part of our getting to understand how children with disabilities function and how they operate. More so, because we want inclusive education, we need to understand how they think and how they operate. I'm pleased to advise that today, in our segment of NPTA Speaks, we have as our guest Professor Paulson Skerritt. He will tell you all about himself, what he does, and why he is here today as our guest. Professor, welcome to the studio of Real TV. So very happy to have you.
Thank you, Walter. I'm happy to be here.
Tell me, Professor, who is Paulson Skerritt?
Well, currently, I am the coordinator for the Bachelor of Education program at UWI School of Education. That program trains teachers to teach in the primary school. And of course, this September, we're excited because we have redesigned the program. Okay. We've done a lot of revision, but also some restructuring to best prepare students to teach in the primary school. And we've done this in close collaboration with the Ministry of Education. Every single course was reviewed by the ministry, and if we had to make any changes, we got their approval, and then it went through the university's approval system. It was a really beautiful collaboration with the curriculum division. So we're pretty sure that this restructured, revised program is going to be bringing out the best in terms of teacher preparation for the schools.
And that is so important. Now, this is a 3-year program, isn't it?
Now 4 years.
4 years, oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you have to make sure that they are grounded and they can come and deliver properly to our students, because the role of the teacher is so very critical. I know of students who would listen to the voice of the teacher more than the voice of the parent. So it's very important what you put out there so that our students can imbibe and take it in and be able to be better citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. So these teachers that you teach go into mainstream school?
Yes. So while a lot of the work I do involves deaf education, training of teachers currently in the system, teaching deaf children, training of educational interpreters who work with these children.
Right.
My primary responsibility is training teachers who will teach in the regular schools.
Got you. So there has to be an element, though, of special education, special teaching, special tutoring in order to cater for the deaf students in the classroom. Certainly?
So that's a very interesting concept. Now, UE does offer special and inclusive education masters. Dr. Carrington Blades has skillfully led that program for a number of years. But one of the big issues we have had, especially with the Ministry of Education, is that there's a belief that training in special needs education qualifies you to teach deaf students.
Right.
And that is not the case.
Oh.
So you might be able to work with the other disabilities, but students who are deaf have a unique challenge. And their challenge lies in the fact that they're often faced with something called language deprivation.
Okay.
So unfortunately, many deaf students are not identified very early. And that's the first problem.
Yes.
Early identification would lead to early intervention.
Correct.
And that early intervention, a primary part of that would be immersion in an accessible language.
Right.
When a deaf child is born into a family, the parents are hearing most of the time.
Yes.
Over 95% of deaf children are born to hearing parents.
Good.
Which means the child is coming into a situation where there's initial trauma.
Right.
Because the biggest gift you could give your child is the gift of language.
Correct.
And a hearing parent who is not a signer is not able to pass on that gift to the child. Which
so
is supposed
a communication problem in the very onset.
And that language deprivation affects children in a number of fundamental ways.
Right.
It affects their brain development.
Right.
So recently we had a conference, it's called the Caribbean Deaf Education Conference. We
And
just
you speak about that as well.
that
Yes,
conference.
yeah.
One of the feature addresses had to do with the trauma. It was given by Professor Yaret Rodriguez from Puerto Rico, and she spoke about the kind of trauma that deaf people face.
Right.
And language deprivation is critical to that trauma because it affects brain development.
Yes.
It affects the development of the child in so many other ways. The ability to identify, the sense of self-competence, self-esteem, that they could achieve things.
Yes.
And so many things are affected by that.
Don't assume for a second, Professor, that we are all familiar with language deprivation. I want you to delve a bit deeper because I gather in the very early stages of a child's developmental life, language deprivation plays a critical role. So go a little deeper into the discussions on language deprivation.
So think of the average hearing child who's born into a home.
Right.
They can hear, so they have immediate communication with their parents. In fact, before intrauterine, children can access the sounds.
Right.
You know, we have research that shows that children respond to their parents' voices, respond to music.
Good.
So they're already accessing speech sounds.
Got you.
And so a lot of times parents are reading to their children even before the children are born.
Good.
A deaf child, there's no intrauterine experience.
Right.
And when the child is born, you have parents who are talking to the child, but the child is not able to access that.
Got you.
And we know there's a critical language learning period. Critical period where children will acquire language. And so if a child is not immediately, if a child does not have deaf parents who are already signers, so the child is born deaf but they could see. So they have visual access. In the less than 4% of those cases, we found that children who are born to deaf parents do well. Because they have that initial language. So it doesn't matter which language. Before, many people were misinformed and unfortunately did a lot of disservice to deaf people where they felt language is just speech. But language can be signed communication.
And that is your first language, almost as though that's your first language.
Yes, it's the first language that they access.
Exactly. And just as we are speaking and communicating in English with our children, we are communicating via sign language.
That's right.
No?
But that's only accessible to less than 4% of deaf children all over the world, including Trinidad.
Got you.
More than 95%, so you look at 95, 96, 97%, don't have that. They are going to be language deprived.
Got you.
And that's going to affect their cognitive development because language and
Yes.
cognition is
Of
tied
course.
together.
Yeah, definitely.
Their ability to interact with others.
Yes.
And think of the trauma.
Yes.
If you are deaf, your parent, let's say they're watching the TV and
Yes.
you are watching it, but you don't know what's going on.
Nothing,
You can't
yeah.
access what's going on
Correct,
on TV.
yes.
You're trying to get their attention.
Yeah,
What's
yeah,
happening
yeah,
there?
yeah.
And they would just say, not now.
And I know.
Or they all have a discussion, and
Yes.
everybody gets
Do
up
another
and
part
they're
of
leaving
it.
to go
Yeah,
somewhere, to the
exactly, yeah.
mall, to the
Yeah,
beach,
yep,
and the
yep.
child doesn't know what's going on.
Yeah.
They drag the child along. Trauma, trauma.
Yes,
trauma.
I would imagine. I would imagine. So the early identification, and of course you spoke earlier about that, and mostly the early intervention play a critical role, especially when it comes to language deprivation. Speak to that as well, the early identification and the early intervention.
So currently, what exists in Trinidad and Tobago as a patchwork of universal screening is that they are going to screen high-risk pregnancies.
Okay, okay.
Deaf children generally are not the product of high-risk pregnancies.
Oh.
So you obviously going to miss those
yes,
children.
certainly.
All right.
Yeah.
So it means that to say you have universal screening where you are currently only screening high-risk pregnancies
Right.
means you are not going to be providing early identification for deaf children.
Yeah.
And then, if there's no early identification,
Yes.
there's no early intervention.
Obviously.
Because
obviously.
the time
Not
the
even
parent
aware.
will find
Yeah,
out the child
exactly.
is deaf is so many months or
Correct,
years later when they're
exactly.
realizing, but this child are hearing me.
Yeah, yeah,
And then
yeah.
some of them start knocking things and they realize, wait a minute,
Nothing's
something's wrong
taking
with my
place.
child.
Right.
And then they go and have the child assessed and the doctor
Right.
says your child is deaf. Critical language
Correct.
learning period gone.
That's it.
Too
That's
late.
it. That's it. That's it.
And now
yeah.
this child is going to be struggling for the
Yes.
rest of their lives to develop language, develop vocabulary, develop cognition.
Yes.
And there comes the trauma again.
Based upon research, they mean this is 2026. Is there any way that we could identify that disability even?
So that question came up in one
antenatal?
of the panels we had at the conference,
Good.
where it was mentioned in some countries they have real universal screening.
Good.
All children.
Good.
Dr. Dick from Drechy in
Right.
Spain,
Uh-huh.
she came up and made that point that there needs to be a close collaboration with the ministries of health,
Good.
ministries of education,
Good.
and to ensure that every child
Yes.
is assessed. We
Yes.
can identify the issues, including hearing difficulties,
Good.
so we
good.
can have that early intervention.
Got you. Got you.
And with regards to the early intervention, what we need, so we recently got a grant from
Good.
the Fernandez Memorial Trust One.
Got you.
It's a grant actually coming out of Fernandez from here.
The trust.
They've
fund.
left some
Yeah.
money to
Got you.
pursue educational initiatives.
Good.
And Miss Ayana Bartholomew, she heard about the work that we were doing in
Right.
early intervention,
Got you.
early childhood care.
Right.
So she had a meeting with me, and I told her one of the areas that in Trinidad and Tobago we need urgent attention
Definitely.
is to train deaf signers or native-like signers
Right.
to work as language models for deaf children.
Good.
So when a deaf
Fantastic.
child is born, those models can be placed in the home to work with the families.
Good.
They can be placed in the early childhood care and centers,
Yes, ECCE,
and even the
yes.
primary schools.
Good.
So we successfully wrote for that grant. We were awarded the grant,
Good.
and we selected about 20 deaf signers.
Good.
We also have native signers, so
As
not
well.
deaf.
Sure.
So we have some coders.
Ah,
Coders
good,
are children
good,
of
good.
deaf adults.
Got you.
So they're very good signers.
Yeah.
And we brought them together, and our
20,
goal was
20 of them. 20 of
yes,
them.
to train them to be language models, language mentors for deaf children.
Good.
So that is going on right now.
Right.
We had
You're being
started in
trained
June.
presently as we
Yes.
speak. Good.
2
And
weeks.
what after the training? What happens after the training?
All right. So the training involves two parts. One, we wanted to bring the language skills and linguistic skills of these children,
Right.
of these deaf adults, not children,
Right. Yes.
deaf adults up to par.
Good.
Because remember, they've missed out on education.
Yeah.
So they could sign, that doesn't make them teachers.
Got you.
So we had to, one, bring their own reading and
Right.
writing skills, their language
up to
skills.
par. Yes.
Part B of the training has to do with how do you work with young children.
Good. Good.
All right,
good,
because
good,
the
good.
best teachers,
Still.
the most qualified teachers,
Correct,
need to
correct.
work with the youngest children.
Definitely.
We don't do that here in Trinidad. The
Sadly,
best
sadly.
children in SEA.
Yeah, exactly. No problem.
The most
Yeah.
highly qualified teachers, the
Yes.
best teachers you have,
Yeah.
should teach the young children.
Exactly. Who need the help more? Certainly.
Because any
certainly.
mistakes made there,
Yes, that's
that's
it.
the
That's it.
problem.
Yeah.
So-
and it can have detrimental effect for the entire life of the child.
absolutely right.
Certainly. Yeah.
So right now, there was a 2-week immersion prior to the conference. We had Dr. Kristen Snodden, Dr. Yaret Rodriguez,
Good.
Dr. Erin Wilkinson,
Good.
and we had 2 local deaf persons,
Actually deaf.
what is happening with me? Ian Danolal,
Okay.
Valdano, they also were involved in that training where we were preparing these individuals to work with the young children.
Good.
How to be professional in working with
Right,
families.
right,
What are the ways of getting children's attention to teach
Yes,
them?
certainly.
And then, of course, part A continues. I'm the one doing the training in part A until the end of October.
Good.
So at the end of October, we'll have these certifiable
Right.
deaf individuals who can work for early intervention
Got you.
with these deaf
So they go into the mainstream and of course the
They
special
first start
schools.
families.
Families as well.
So a
Okay, so
child
that's their first
who's
port
deaf
of
is
call.
born, we want to place that child there.
Got
Of
you.
course, they'll have to be paid for their services.
Certainly.
But they are giving that child an opportunity to get language.
Good.
So there we're minusing the language
Got you,
deprivation.
got you.
They could also work with the teachers
As well.
with the parents to train
Well.
the parents in signing how they can work with the children
Yes.
and also with the teachers.
Let's pause for a pause, pay some bills, and come right back. Professor Paulson Skerritt is my guest today, and we'll be right back.
You're viewing Real TV. Thanks for choosing us. Hi, I'm Zalisa Budu Singh Rupani, and I'm inviting you to join me for Conversations with Zalisa right here on Real TV. It's not just another talk show, it's a space for real stories, real insight, and real impact. We cover it all: health, law, parenting, relationships, drug and substance abuse, mental health, social issues, and so much more, with expert guests who help bring clarity to life's most important questions. So, whether you're looking to be informed, empowered, or simply inspired, this show is for you. Weekdays at 10 a.m. with repeats on Real TV.
Let's get straight to the point. I am Dale Edwards, Dale the Voice, and we're going to get straight to the point right here on Real TV. Join me Monday to Friday, 4 to 6 p.m. when we talk the hard truth. We're not beating around the bush. We're getting straight to the point, dealing with real issues, social, politics, and much more. Monday to Friday, the only place to be is right here on Real TV.
Join us on Real TV for Highlights with Alan Ferguson, a program where we aim to level the playing field through meaningful conversation and real action. We highlight the positive developments happening within communities across Trinidad and Tobago, while also addressing the concerns and challenges affecting government agencies and everyday citizens. Tune in every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 6 p.m., only on Real TV.
Kids say the funniest things, and sometimes the smartest too.
So, kids, if you were Prime Minister for one day, what would you do?
That everybody got a nice vacation and go in the beach. Have the everybody.
Every episode is packed with honest answers, big imaginations, and moments that will make you laugh, smile, and maybe even learn something new.
So join me, Zalisa, as we discover the world through the eyes of our youngest generation. Conversations with Kids, weekdays at 12 p.m., only on Real TV.
Welcome back. National Parent Teacher Association Speaks, NPTA Speaks. I'm your host, Walter Stewart. And today we are looking at why early intervention matters. Guesting with me in studio is Professor Paulson Skerritt. I'm told, Professor, that you are the only lecturer at the university with a specialist in deaf education. Am I correct by saying that?
Yes.
Give us a little more insight as to why you chose this line of education, which of course is very pivotal, very important as we help our students who are deaf and hard of hearing.
Yes. Of course, I'll be University of the West Indies, St. Augustine, because we have
Sure.
my colleague,
St. Augustine.
Karen Cumberbatch, who is a senior lecturer and in deaf education in Jamaica.
Okay,
Mona.
okay.
We do have people like Professor Braffett, who works in linguistics and dealing with sign language, doing some phenomenal work in looking at Caribbean sign languages and the indigenous varieties that exist across the Caribbean. And he does a lot of excellent work with some deaf linguists like Ian Damlal and others. And that's really doing fascinating work to make us aware of the different varieties of sign languages that exist. But when it comes to deaf education, while we have a lot of persons qualified in special needs education, deaf education is a unique field because deaf children, not only do they need individuals teaching them to be proficient signers, but they need individuals trained to be able to break down content, whether it's science, physics, biology, whatever it is, in a way that the deaf child can process that visually.
Yes.
So the way you teach has to be different. For example, one of the new and emerging pedagogy has to do with how you teach.
Right.
For the deaf, we're now looking at what is called translanguaging pedagogy for deaf education.
Right.
And that has to do with taking advantage of all the linguistic resources that a deaf child brings to the classroom.
Right.
So I don't know if you remember, maybe 100 years ago, there was a conference in Milan. That conference did the biggest disservice to deaf education all over the world, including Trinidad and Tobago.
Oh, wow.
And what was promoted in that conference was to ban sign language and to promote speech. The deaf children needed to get the various approaches to developing their speech in isolation and not including the use of sign language.
Oh.
So
as you said, a big disservice indeed.
Yes, all over the world, many individuals did not encourage the use of sign language. They felt that speech therapy, use of cochlear implants, FM systems. I've actually taught at deaf schools in the United States where I was required to do what is called simcomming, to sign and speak at the same time, because they felt that speech had to be included. They were providing children with cochlear implants or with hearing aids, with the hope that they could benefit
somehow.
from that. With translanguaging, we're taking the approach that all the linguistic resources a child can bring to learning language and developing their skills should be used. Whether it's gesturing, their home sign systems, whether it's speech, proficiency in sign language, use everything that you can to help the child, because deaf children are not homogeneous learners. They're very heterogeneous. One, they come in homes where they each face different circumstances. So you may have one child who's born into a home where the parents are deaf. They have the advantage of having language access immediately. You may have a child who's born in a home where the parents are struggling to learn sign language, but they're trying and they're supporting the children. Some children are born with residual hearing. Or a child may be born hearing and then they're impacted by some disease and then they become deaf. So at least they would have had access initially. That's heterogeneous. So you can't have a one-size-fits-all to teach a deaf child.
Certainly not.
And a teacher of the deaf who's trained would understand that. When I did my training for my master's in deaf education, I did audiology. So I understood the role of speech, cue speech, and speech therapy, and the different ways we could try to support the deaf child who has a cochlear implant or hearing aid. But I also was required to sign.
Must do that.
They required that I take a sign language proficiency interview that told them what is the level of your signing proficiency
and skills.
Certainly.
Tell me, let's look at sign language in education. What international best practice and examples could you bring to bear, and what presently obtains here in Trinidad and Tobago?
So recently in February, I went to the Association of College Educators to the Deaf and Hard of Hearing conference in Colorado. On my first day there, we were invited to tour one of the deaf schools. So in this deaf school, it's primary school. high school, but they also had an early intervention program.
Okay. Under 5, I guess. Under 5.
Under 5.
Okay.
There were
okay.
children there 2 years, 3 years of age,
Right.
benefiting from instruction.
Very
Of course, lots
good.
of play
Sure,
and some
sure.
language immersion.
Sure.
That's best practice.
Great.
Early intervention.
Of course, yeah.
By everybody at that school signed, from the principal, the janitors,
Right.
everybody in that school.
A community,
signed.
exactly, yeah.
And the children were doing all kinds of things. We went to the robotics program.
Right, they were there.
You know,
Yeah.
and there was no limit as to what they could do. The program was interesting.
Yeah.
So that's a good question that you asked.
Yeah.
Currently in Trinidad and Tobago, in the deaf schools, we do not have sign language on the curriculum.
Not?
No.
In the deaf school,
We
you
have
say?
been asking for that for years. and
But
it's
Professor,
still
hold a second.
not
That
there.
is supposed to be top priority in a deaf school?
Yeah. This is we learn English.
Of course.
I'm a native speaker of English.
Right.
But I did English in school.
Correct.
That's why I understand, for example, when to use Z
Right.
versus A
Correct.
and I was
Yeah,
taught those things.
Yeah.
I could pick it up intuitively from
Got
conversation.
you. Yeah.
But I was taught it.
Yeah.
The deaf children not picking up anything
Nothing.
intuitively because they can't hear. But you're also not teaching them their
Exactly.
own first language.
And you are correct. This is the only language that they would understand initially. I mean, they would learn other languages as they go along, as they develop and as they progress. But this is their first language, and of course, should be given priority in all deaf schools. One would
So that's
imagine.
not the case. And I'm
Sadly.
also thinking what should happen is that now Trinidad and Tobago has a mainstream system. So
Right.
many deaf children don't go to the residential schools. They would go to regular schools.
Got you.
And therefore, in those schools also, all the students should benefit from sign language.
Correct, yeah.
instruction. So when we went to the school in Colorado, that model school, what we found was that they had sign language on the curriculum
Right.
because they have standards
Right.
on the sign language curriculum.
Good.
So the students can be assessed. They have the curriculum determining what they should be taught and assessment that determines whether they have met the
Right.
objectives. And that has to happen here. We need to have in our schools for the deaf, we have the Cascade School for the Deaf.
Good.
We have the Audrey Jeffers School for the Deaf.
Right.
The Tobago School for the Deaf.
As well.
And then we have all those schools where we have students being mainstream. They need to have sign language on the curriculum that will benefit the deaf students, but also in the schools that are mainstream for good interaction. They always
Yes.
talk about we want the deaf children to have interaction with the hearing peers.
Correct,
That's
yes.
good for their social, but if the other hearing children can't
Exactly,
sign,
exactly.
what is the interaction going to be like?
None.
So sign
Yeah.
language needs to be in the curriculum for those schools as well.
But shouldn't there now, Professor, especially with what all that you are saying, shouldn't we now make sign language almost mandatory in all those schools in Trinidad and Tobago?
Yes, in fact, it would be nice for it to be in all schools.
Yes.
We've learned that hearing children can also benefit from learning sign language. It's an
Correct.
alternative way
Exactly.
to communicate. Imagine you're out in a noisy environment
Yeah.
and you can communicate in sign language
Yes.
to somebody. You don't need speech. You don't need to hear.
Exactly.
So I think we wouldn't have the resources to make it mandatory in all schools
Right.
as yet. But
Yes.
at least it should be mandatory in the schools for the deaf
Yes.
and the schools that benefit from the mainstream program.
But just as we are bilingual, in other words, we teach Spanish in our schools, we teach French in our schools, shouldn't we as well on the curriculum have sign language as part of the curriculum as well?
Yes, and that's why at UWI in the new BED program, I have made doing sign language mandatory for all the teachers.
Good. Ah,
So every
very
teacher
good.
coming through the new Bachelor of Education program
Right.
is required to do sign
Sign language.
And we got some pushback
Commendable.
from that.
You certainly
Some people
would,
felt,
yeah.
no,
What
no,
is this
no,
about?
why
Yeah.
are you doing that?
Yeah.
And I'm glad I insisted because that is the course of wisdom. Every teacher coming out of the bachelor's program will now be trained, at least
Good.
have at least one semester of sign language. If we could have gotten more, that'd be nice, but
I know.
at least we did the best we could.
Earlier, you spoke about translanguaging pedagogies. Give us a little more insight as well into that, Professor.
So, Dr. Walbers, he was my advisor.
Sure.
We started looking at something called SIWI, Strategic Interactive Writing Instruction. And I did that for my doctorate, and through SIWI, we were able to see that when you work with deaf children to teach them writing from a second language perspective, you rarely have to use all of the linguistic resources that the child is bringing to get that shared understanding and to help them to be able to think of what they want to write in their first language
Right.
and be able to produce that in a second language that is linear,
Yes.
their first language is visual spatial.
Yeah.
And we found that deaf children, when they write, a lot of their visual spatial thinking comes out in the writing, which is not English.
Yeah.
So she has now, working with a couple of other professors, they have discovered that a lot of the fundamental principles of CIWI, if you take a step back, they fall into to this bigger framework called translanguaging pedagogy, where the same idea of taking advantage of all the linguistic resources that the deaf child brings. And so what that means is that you're doing what you can while teaching the deaf child to make sure there's that point of shared understanding. So that you can build their understanding of how language works, not just intuitively, but also explicitly teaching those concepts so that the deaf child can develop mastery.
Fantastic. I mean, we are emphasizing deaf, but of course, I know you said you are at the School of Education as a professor. So across all, for all your teachers, really, your students, really, you do teach English as the major item of subject. But of course, your emphasis as well is on deaf students. You're teaching the deaf students and hard of hearing.
That's right. Of course, in the program, there's a big focus. So because I train teachers to teach in the primary school, we want them to understand the Creole. So one of the courses I've included in the new BEd is a course on linguistics that will take a look at the Creole varieties spoken in Trinidad and Tobago. Many teachers come out with a degree in teaching, but they themselves don't understand the Creole. But our children are growing up in homes where their first language is a Creole variety.
Exactly.
And if you as a teacher don't understand, if your own metalinguistic awareness, your ability to work through both languages is not there, how can you help children to navigate that language scene? Because you want them to build their metalinguistic awareness.
Certainly. Professor, you are aware of the issue with regards to nothing about us without us, the slogan. When you come back after the break, we're going to talk about that a bit because, again, inclusivity is what is important here in this discussion. Take a break, pay some bills, and come right back. NPTA Speaks.
You're viewing Real TV. Thanks for choosing us.
Macon Construction Company Limited. Save big whilst building stronger. We build with our Macon innovative building systems, which provides high wind speed, earthquake, sea blast and fire resistance. Is thermally and acoustically insulated. Provides improved construction timelines and cost savings. We provide construction services from design to finish and everything in between. Macon Construction Company Limited. Building green today with tomorrow's technology. Contact or visit us today.
Looking for all your back-to-school essentials? Well, come on down to Keith Muhammad Books and School Supplies, where we have a wide variety of stationery and stencil supplies. We have wide ranges of textbooks on math, science, and even literature. We also are the sole distributors of the Malaysian publisher Mind to Mind, and have bestsellers Sudoku and Word Search. Visit us at our opening hours and feel our warm hospitality. We are located at number 5 Railway Road, San Juan, and WhatsApp us at 777-7341 for more info.
You need some cash. You need it now. Without the stress, we'll tell you how.
At JNMB Express Finance, there are no fees on unsecured loans from $2,500 to $75,000. That's a fact. None, not one. No fees, no fuss, no cash. Approval in 24 hours, and the funds go direct to your account. Come in or call Jeff today.
Call 2244-JEF.
Are you driven? Hardworking? Ready to take your sales career to the next level? Good Price Wholesalers is hiring. We're looking for an experienced sales representative to join our dynamic team. If you're a great communicator, have proven sales experience, and own a working vehicle, we want to hear from you. Call 388-9884 today or visit us at LP number 5, La Pastora Road, Santa Cruz.
Welcome back. NPTA Speaks, National Parent Teacher Association Speaks. This is Thursday, as per our usual programming, from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. every Thursday. We are on your screens promoting and advocating for our students and our parents in Trinidad and Tobago. Remember our motto, home and school, united for the good of the child. So all we do, all we enunciate, all we speak about, the parent is in focus, and of course the children of Trinidad and Tobago are our main priority. Guesting with me today is Professor Paulson Skerritt of the School of Education, University of the West Indies, St. Augustine. Before the break, Professor, we were looking at the slogan, nothing about us without us. In the context of deaf education, could you align that slogan with what is taking place in education among our deaf students?
Definitely. In a number of ways that applies. One, we need the role of deaf models. So if you want to find out what could best help deaf children, ask the deaf. Right. They've gone through the experiences. Sure. Yeah. Many of them are successful. In Trinidad and Tobago, we have many successful deaf adults. Some have own businesses. Right. Some of them have been given international awards for the work that they do. If we want to know what works best, the best way we could support the deaf child, we need to find out from the deaf adults. Like Brian Rodriguez. Good. I mentioned Valdano, Tobias, Ian Danolao, Dana Smith. Quite a number of deaf individuals who have accomplished. They had their first degree, some of them have their master's degree. Good. So if we want to do things to benefit the deaf, we need to ask them. Of course. Benefit from their experience. And of course, we need deaf leaders, deaf leadership, deaf advocacy. Yes. They're the ones. Recently at a conference, we had two people from the Philippines. Okay. The Philippines have had their sign language nationally recognized. Good. And what led to that success was deaf leadership. Right. So in their presentation, they spoke about the struggles they had, but because of the deaf advocacy, deaf leadership, they were able to get their sign language recognized. Nationally, exactly, at national level. And because of that, education benefited. Right. Because now you can have resources being developed to support the education of the deaf because the sign language is nationalized. While we in the Caribbean need to focus not just on one national sign language because we have indigenous varieties. So we're very careful to talk about nationalization because we don't want the indigenous varieties to be sidelined. But that still is the key. We need deaf leaders to be involved. They have to be involved. And we have found that training the deaf, right, many of them are getting training in linguistics now, so they can assist with the research needed to document their own sign language. As well as in education, we have the deaf, like my classes in sign language, the deaf take the lead in those classes. Good. They're there as serving as tutors, and the students really benefit from having these language models in the classroom who are native signers to teach them the TTSL, the Trinidad and Tobago Sign Language, rather than the American Sign Language. Got you.
Doctor, you spoke several times about this particular Caribbean conference held recently, I think July 23rd to 25th. Pathways to Inclusive Education and Human Rights for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing. I'm told that was your brainchild. Am I correct?
Well, Kishiba is the one, you mentioned Kishiba was in a program recently.
Yes, of course.
We've worked over the years. She has a parent network organization, and I'm on the board. Good. And she kept saying to me, we need to have a deaf education conference. And I said, that's a good idea. But initially I wasn't taking on. Right. Because that's a mama's task.
It is.
But eventually she came back another time and she said, we need to have a deaf education conference.
Right.
And I had just gone to the International Deaf Education Conference in Rome.
Okay.
And then I was planning to go to ASDA. And I said, you know, you're right. I'm going all the way in Europe, right at home. In the States.
Yeah, right here. Yeah, correct.
So I finally agreed, okay, let's plan this. And I'm glad. So we had the conference. We started with some pre-conference workshops. Good. On the first day, we had a workshop done by Professor Snodden on a deaf education curriculum for parents.
Very good.
Because we realize that parents need to learn sign language because that's a gift you give to your deaf child.
The communication is important. Professor, yeah.
And then in the afternoon, Professor Walbers, who was my supervisor for my doctorate, she did something on teaching writing, on translanguaging pedagogy.
Oh, okay, okay.
And it was very practical. People loved it.
Yes.
They learned the different ways in which they could engage with the deaf child, all their linguistic resources to help them develop their language and literacy skills.
Yeah, fantastic.
And then the conference came on July 23rd. We had the opening.
Good.
Dr. Walbers also gave the opening presentation
as well.
on looking at writing, what we know about teaching deaf children writing and having a different look at that, what the evidence is now showing works. The Minister of Education was there. We did invite the two line ministries. No one represented the Ministry of People's...
that's the People's for Development.
Because they have a direct line with people with disabilities.
Correct.
But the Minister of Education was the first to respond. He said he was going to be there, and he did show up.
Appreciate that,
and,
yes.
And he was there, so we appreciated that.
Yes.
The conference, we had 6 keynote addresses.
Good.
Normally the conference, we have 1 or 2 keynotes.
That was heavy stuff.
We had 6 keynotes. We had Andrea Witter from Jamaica, who is doing a lot of work with an organization called ICANN. They are training and empowering deaf people with specific skills that deaf people say they want training in, so they become self-employed, they can have some real skills.
Yes, certainly.
So ICANN provides funding for these training to take place across the Caribbean. And Andrew Witter, Ian Danolal, Dr. Brafford, they're very much involved in that ICANN initiative.
Good.
We had Professor Yaret Rodriguez, I mentioned her.
You did,
She gave the second address on trauma. Brain trauma. She is a neuropsychologist, neuroscientist. And her presentation addressed the various ways in which the trauma of language deprivation and the other kinds of trauma deaf children experience, how it affects their brain development. And then we had Professor Snodden, who talked about literacy for deaf children in the Caribbean. She did some research herself with Ian Danolal. And her presentation focused on that. And then we had another presentation from Professor Gallaudet University. She's the head of the Deaf Education Program. And she also looked at deaf education and what works, the kind of pedagogies that can work to bring out the best in deaf children.
I'm told that some of the presenters as well are actually deaf, I'm told.
Yes, actually most of the presenters at the conference were deaf. So of course sign language interpreting was
definitely.
I'm very thankful. We had some interpreters from the United States, from Texas. They were real professionals, certified interpreters. And we had our own local interpreters
as well.
Who really helped us out. But we had people presenting in science, in STEM education, math education, in literacy, deaf PhDs, providing us with evidence-based pedagogy.
Fantastic. Quite an experience, I'm sure. Quite an experience.
We also had some panels. And the panels focus, they had different lens. So one, where UNICEF had a panel on Saturday that looked at children's perspectives. And that of teachers on deaf education. And then I did one panel where I looked at what was happening across the Caribbean in terms of deaf education currently. And what are the needs and what we think would be the solution to address the current needs. That's when we discovered Jamaica is doing a lot of good work in deaf education. They seem to be doing fairly well. And so there's some lessons we can learn from them. And then there was another panel where we heard from deaf adults. Remember, we said nothing about us without us.
Correct.
So we brought some deaf adults and we interviewed them. Professor Thompson from the Gallaudet University. I don't know if you've heard of Gallaudet before.
No, never.
That's the world's only liberal arts university that is for the deaf. So when you're on that campus, you're surrounded by thousands of deaf professionals. Deaf people doing their bachelor's, master's,
right. A university geared primarily for deaf.
You have to be a profound signer
to
be there.
Exactly. Because that's the only language.
And you have to take sign language courses
as well.
At the university. Shiba, I think, has been to that university, so she had that immersion into that deaf world. I've been a couple of times as well. But that panel focused on the deaf perspective. What has been happening here in Trinidad and Tobago and across the Caribbean. Because we had individuals on the panel from the various Caribbean islands.
And that's important, because my next question to you is, how can this regional collaboration now help to improve the lives of deaf persons throughout the Caribbean?
So one of the things that came out of the conference, and it was actually said in the conference, we need to stop operating in silos.
Correct.
We need to start working together.
Together, yes.
What is Jamaica doing that is working well? How can that benefit us?
Yeah.
What are we doing here that's working well?
Yeah, exactly.
And so we need to get the ministries of education on board to recognize that deaf lives matter.
Correct. Yeah, you are correct.
Every deaf child we cause trauma to because of not providing them access to language.
Tools and equipment and all that as well.
Qualified teachers.
Yes, correct.
That's trauma.
So,
and it's trauma that shouldn't happen because Trinidad and Tobago, as with all the other Caribbean countries, as far as I'm aware, are signatories to the CRP.
Correct.
Convention
We are.
on the
I
rights of
mention that
persons
all the
with
time.
disabilities. But we are signatories in name only.
Yes,
We're not actually doing all the things. We're following the various articles in that convention. We would have sign language on the curriculum. We would have qualified interpreters accessible to the deaf. We would have trained teachers trained in deaf education and not just special education.
Yeah.
So we really have to get together, and we need the ministries across the Caribbean to make this a part of their priority agenda to address the issues that are happening in deaf education that is causing more trauma for the deaf.
When Ms. LaFleur was here guesting with me, I asked her this question, and she sort of skirted around it, but of course she did answer the question. If you were placed, Professor, in the presence of a policy maker, what would you advocate at this point in time for the deaf community in Trinidad and Tobago?
One, the association that currently exists, Trinidad and Tobago Association for the Hearing Impaired, I changed the name.
Okay.
It should be Trinidad and Tobago Association for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing.
Correct.
We tried to change it years ago, and hearing people
objected.
Worked against us. The deaf wanted.
Yes.
It's an association for the deaf, but the hearing people want to do what they want.
Isn't that ironic? Yeah.
So that's one.
Yeah.
I would ensure that there are deaf leaders in that association.
As well.
Deaf president, deaf vice president.
Got you.
And that they're the ones who have access to the money because they will use it for the purposes that will benefit the deaf community.
Of course.
I'm going to ensure that all teachers, before you can go and teach in a school for the deaf, that you are a proficient signer. You take a sign language proficiency interview, and you either scoring advanced or advanced plus.
Got you.
Before we allow you in the schools.
Oh,
so you could be trained in special education, that's okay, but that's not good enough. You have
sign language. Sign language, yeah.
Sign language on the curriculum.
Good.
I would have sign language in the curriculum at the deaf schools and in all the schools where the deaf students are being mainstreamed.
Got you.
So those are the major things I would do immediately, and that's not hard. That's not impossible.
No, certainly
it just takes. I often say, one parent I was talking to before the conference, and I was asking her, why do you think we're not making the kind of success and inroads in deaf education? And she says, because the ministers in the government don't have deaf children.
Oh.
I said, what did you say? And she says, the ministers in the government don't have deaf children. If they had deaf children, they would make sure it happened. They don't care. It doesn't affect them.
Got you.
That blew my mind.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, maybe that's not the case, but...
Yes, it is. But one parent is considering that. I mean, someone sure that she wants to voice opinion on the matter.
Because you see, when parents have deaf children, and they have some power, they have some leadership role, they begin changing things. I worked with deaf parents. My biology teacher had a deaf child. I didn't know that at the time. I often wondered why she was so interested in the deaf and wanted to make changes. Until I realized one day she had a deaf child.
Yeah, she's living it, huh? Yeah. And of course, that is what we have to also change the paradigm as well, because as we look at inclusive education, we must consider that all children are different in some way or the other. And we must cater, Professor, for the differently abled students as well, and mostly in the deaf community, and factor that into the education system as well. Everybody needs to pay some attention to that.
Yeah, of course, many deaf children are not just deaf. You have something called deaf plus.
Right.
You have a deaf child with autism, deaf child with ADHD.
Got you.
You have children who are deaf and blind.
As well,
which makes their education system very different. And now they have to use tactile signing.
Correct, yes.
How many teachers know tactile signing?
Right.
And that ability to teach a child who is both deaf and blind, but has a brilliant mind.
Exactly.
While deaf people, there's a bit of sometimes tug of war.
Right.
Are we disabled Are we part of the disability community?
Right.
Well, yes, we have to be there because that's the way we will get accommodations.
Yes.
But we don't see ourselves as having a disability. We see ourselves as being deaf.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with us. We have a language. We can communicate in sign language.
Certainly.
So there has to be a balance.
Yes, certainly.
Where the deaf need accommodations, but they want to be recognized
as well
as having their own language.
And at this juncture, Professor, we pause again for a cause, we pay some bills, and right back at our last segment, NPTA Speaks, Why Early Intervention Matters. Be right back.
You're viewing Real TV. Thanks for choosing us.
Are you looking for the right space for your business? Fred's Plaza has the space you need. We offer professional rental spaces designed for growing businesses. Conveniently located in San Juan on the Eastern Main Road, opposite the PTSC terminal and between Royal Castle and Mario's. Easy access, high visibility. For inquiries, call or WhatsApp 868-384-7142 today, or visit Level 3 Fred's Plaza for details.
In a world full of noise, choose clarity. The Real News digital publication is your choice for important news coverage. From influential figures shaping our nation to a powerful week in review that keeps you informed. The weekly edition is available for download on all of our social media platforms. Smart, sharp, essential. Real News digital publication. Stay informed, stay educated, stay empowered.
Kids say the funniest things, and sometimes the smartest too.
So kids, if you were Prime Minister for one day, what would you do?
That everybody got a light location I'm going to reach. Have the area ready. When they come and walk out.
Every episode is packed with honest answers, big imaginations, and moments that will make you laugh, smile, and maybe even learn something new.
So join me, Zalisa, as we discover the world through the eyes of our youngest generation. Conversations with Kids, weekdays at 12 p.m. only on Real TV.
Welcome back. NPTA Speaks, National Parent Teacher Association Speaks. I'm your host, Walter Stewart, and this is the last segment of today's edition. We are looking at why early intervention matters. Guesting with me is Professor Paulson Skerrett of the School of Education, University of the West Indies. Again, welcome back, and so good to have you as well on this set looking at this particular important topic. There's some school of thought that says that sign language retards the development of English. How do you think about that particular information?
That has been thrown out for a long time. Even though it's been thrown out all the research, there's still people who hold on to that.
Right.
Ignorantly.
So you don't attest to that at all. You don't ascribe to that philosophy.
In fact, the research is showing that hearing children will actually learn sign language ahead of, in terms of milestones, developmental milestones, that they can learn sign language, acquire sign language before speech. So hearing children will benefit from learning sign language. And deaf children can actually, when they're exposed very early to sign language, they develop an understanding of how language works. And that understanding can be transferred to learning English as a second language, to read and write English.
Right.
So deaf children who can benefit from a bilingual curriculum one of the first things I did when I came back to Trinidad was to bring all the teachers in the deaf schools together. And we had the Ministry of Education, Mrs. Cupid at the time was there. When she was there, she did that student support services, really took an active interest in ensuring deaf education was at the forefront.
Yeah.
So every year she would try to seek training for the teachers and the individuals in that unit to get the training. Once she's left, that seems to have gone out the window.
Oh, sadly, yeah.
So I was able to, in 2018, 2019, we had teachers of the deaf coming together. We first introduced them to SIWI. SIWI, Dr. Professor Walbers has been working with the schools for the deaf since 2010 to introduce them to SIWI.
Yeah.
And then in 2018, I brought the teachers again. We looked at SIWI, that strategic interactive writing instruction.
Yes.
I also looked at ways to teach the deaf reading.
Yes.
Based on how parents who are deaf teach their children reading and succeed in developing the literacy skills for the deaf children. And then in 2019, people from the Student Support Services Division came. They got some training in sign language.
Good.
And then we also did some training on a bilingual curriculum.
Okay.
The bilingual approach to teaching the deaf is what really works.
Yes.
So what that approach does is that the concepts in language are first taught to the deaf in sign, which is their native accessible language.
No problem.
And then those same concepts are taught to them in English.
Oh,
so they're able to develop that bilingual understanding, what we call metalinguistic awareness. I know the two languages, I know how they're different and similar, and I can work between both languages.
Got you. Fantastic.
And we found that works for deaf children.
Great.
Schools where there's a bilingual curriculum,
yes.
Deaf children are able to thrive.
Good.
And that's what we need here. We've been exposing the teachers to.
Yeah.
But of course, that needs time, it needs funding, and that's what we want the government to do, to provide funding so the teachers can get training in deaf education.
Yeah. Good.
Special education is not enough. It's good, but it's not enough to work with deaf children.
Got you. As we further deep dive into early intervention, what other aspects besides hearing aids and cochlear implants do you want to encourage parents to look at when there's early intervention?
Well, access to technology is critical because we have a lot that you can bring to the deaf in terms of visual.
Right.
Because for deaf children, you need to bring the world to them. Because remember, they've missed out on a lot when it comes to not having access to speech. They're living in a world where they're flooded by speech, they have no access to it. So technology can be used in teaching. That's why when I teach my deaf children, I want to have access to the internet, because if I want to explain a concept quickly, I need to be able to show them a picture of that, a video, and be able to pair that now with finger spelling, pair and signing, so that very quickly they can get the concept, and then I can proceed to teach them.
Got you.
So technology has its advantages and it benefits the deaf.
Fantastic. Do you have any information, Professor, on success stories, in particular with regards to this year's SCA results? Do you have any success stories with regards to that for the deaf and hard of hearing?
I don't know. What I know has been happening since there's been an increased support for working with younger children.
Good.
I think the quality of deaf children we're getting in the schools has improved.
Good.
This year, for the first time, we hosted Spelling Bee, a national spelling bee.
For deaf and hard of hearing?
Deaf-led.
Good.
So Valdano Tobias and Tennille Smith, Stacy McDonald, I think she just got married, so she's a new last name.
Right.
And I feel the deaf individuals, they took the mantle and organized
very good.
different rounds for a national spelling bee. I was invited to the finals.
Right.
And very impressed with the work that was done.
Fantastic, I'm happy to hear that.
There's a lot of work being done by the deaf community and with support from the teachers that is really supporting the deaf. But I'm not sure particularly what success stories we've had.
But how could we promote, and I'm talking about we meaning the involvement of the National Parent Teacher Association, how could we now assist in promoting efforts like the one you just mentioned, the spelling bee competition? We'd be more than happy to partner with you and be able to promote, market and advertise such an activity.
I think that's an excellent initiative because it will show the deaf that they can.
Of course,
and show them that they need to work hard to develop their own literacy skills. Some teachers have tried to expressed the view that deaf children should be given a different assessment. But the point is, deaf children live in a country where English is spoken. English is the main language,
Correct.
language of text,
Yes.
language of education, language of business, language of government. So they have to develop proficiency
Of course.
in English. They may not be able to speak it, but they should be able to read and
Right,
write it.
exactly.
So deaf people have to realize that we have to make an effort to develop our proficiency in written English. But what I think has to happen, the National Parent Teachers Association,
Correct. Yes.
one of the things they can do is to get parents to not be focused on themselves too much. Because sometimes when we, for example, try to encourage the teaching of sign language in the schools, parents will say, my child not there. What I want my child to learn sign language for. That's a very selfish perspective.
It is. Yeah.
Because if your child learns to sign, then they can have fluent communication with a deaf person. When they have group work, instead of having an interpreter, the deaf child and the hearing child can work on learning together. When the deaf child wants to comment in class, the hearing child can listen to the comment. They can have lots of rich discussion going on in the classroom.
Wholesome.
Let your hearing child learn sign language.
And you see, sign language shouldn't be taken as I can't do it, for example. Of course, it's supposed to be all-inclusive, and we should look forward to being able to have sign language practice in every classroom, even from, as you said, the ECCE, all the way up to our primary and secondary. We spoke earlier, Professor, about your interaction with the policy maker. Tell us something directly now that you want the Minister of Education, Dr. Michael Dowlatt, to hear from your perspective, in particular dealing with the deaf and hard of hearing community, students in particular.
I wanted to hear and listen.
Got you.
So we need to stop putting teachers in the deaf schools who can't sign. We have a number of deaf teachers who are trained and they're struggling to get appointed as teachers. And someone from the ministry said to a deaf teacher, she has a Bachelor of Education, she's doing a Master's in Sports
a deaf teacher
right now.
Right.
She says, I am teaching in the deaf school, but I'm a teacher assistant. I want to be appointed as a teacher, and I've been trying to get the ministry to do that, and they're not taking me on. And the person from the ministry said, the most we could do for you is appoint you as an interpreter assistant. And I said, what? So my response was, this is the person who needs to be teaching the deaf child.
Exactly. And
they're not only deaf,
she's certified,
native signer, but you have a bachelor's degree and you're doing a master's.
Correct.
So
what more do you want to be? Exactly, there's something.
And that needs to be fixed. The minister needs to fix that urgently. Because that is a matter of human rights violation, language rights violation.
Correct, exactly.
Because the trauma you're putting on a deaf child, where you have teachers being placed in the schools for the deaf, and they can't sign.
Exactly.
What are you teaching? How can you teach? How can you communicate? If you can't communicate, how are you going to teach the children?
That's correct. And again, as we look at inclusive education, this is where inclusive education comes in a major way.
It's a no-brainer.
Exactly.
They have to action that immediately.
Certainly. And that, to me, that's not rocket science, really,
No.
Definitely.
And of course, getting sign language on the curriculum in the deaf schools and in the schools where the deaf are being mainstream, all the students should be doing sign language. And we have lots of deaf people who can go into those schools and teach the sign language.
And make a worthwhile contribution as well, I'm sure.
And get some money, earn a living.
And I did speak with Ms. LaFleur when she was here 2 weeks ago with regards to the direct intervention of the National Parent Teacher Association and ensuring that our 3 schools in Trinidad and Tobago have active functional parent-teacher associations in those schools. And we are working very hard in our new academic year, 26-27, starting in September, to ensure that we can bring in all your schools, School for the Deaf in Cascade, in Marabella, and of course in Tobago, bring them on board and ensure that they have a seat at the table, the Parent-Teacher Association meetings.
Excellent.
I cannot let you go, Professor, and not have you, as your closing message, do it in a sign language. Please.
Okay. Well, I'm thinking that what we need now, all the schools for the deaf, I want them to have a sign language curriculum. We want teachers who are placed in those schools, they need to be skilled signers. And we also want teachers who are deaf, who are signers, for them to be appointed in those schools. And we think early identification, early intervention is the key, that's going to be the key, to the development of the deaf and hard of hearing.
Wow. Professor, I thank you wholeheartedly for guesting with me today. And of course, you'll be hearing and seeing much more from the National Parent Teacher Association as we think early intervention and of course inclusive education. My pleasure to be with you.
Pleasure, sir.
Yes, indeed. Thank you very much.
Views and opinions expressed in the preceding program were those of the hosts, guests, and contributors, and do not reflect the official views of Real TV, its management, or affiliates. Content was provided for informational and entertainment purposes only. Viewer discretion is advised.